Simplifying fractions. To simplify a fraction, we divide the top and bottom by the highest number that can divide into both numbers exactly. And that exactly part is very important. So in other words, we got to find the highest number that we could divide both the numerator and the denominator of a fraction, but it has to come out exact. So in other words, we can't have a decimal and we cannot have a remainder when we divide those numbers. Why would we simplify fractions? Well, for a couple reasons. In a math problem, it makes it easier when we have smaller numbers to work with than really large numbers. So if we can find a fraction within that problem and simplify it, it makes it easier to work with. But also, we usually use the simplified version of it. So if we cut up a pizza and your mom asked you how much pizza was left, you wouldn't tell her that we had 4/8 of a pizza left or 2/4 of a pizza left. You'd simply say we have half a pizza, and that would be the simplified version of the fraction. Now there's a couple of different ways that we can simplify fractions. The first way is to list out all the factors of each the numerator and the denominator and figure out what is the greatest common factor. Okay, so in this example here we have 24 over 60. And we've listed out all the factors. So we've done 1 times 24 equals 24, 2 times 12 equals 24, 3 times 8 equals 24, and so on. Same thing for 60. We did 1 times 60, 2 times 30 equals 60, 3 times 20 equals 60, 4 times 15 equals 60, and you kind of get the picture there. So this way is kind of long, in my opinion. I'll show you a different way here in a second. That's a lot faster and a lot more simple in my mind. If you like this way, you can do it that way here, but it takes a lot longer. Okay, here you can see that 12 is the greatest common factor, so that's the biggest common number out of all these factors. So if we took 12 and we divided 24 by 12, we'd get 2. 60 divided by 12, we would get 5. And so that would be this in the simplest form, 2/5. All right, let's look at some examples here, and I'll show you a different way here. So 8 over 20. Okay, so 8 over 20, we have to think of what is the biggest number we could divide both 8 and 20 by to get exact numbers. Okay, so if we thought about it for a little bit, we'd probably come up with 4 can go into both 8 and 4 can also go into 20. But let's say we didn't know that. So, and you had used a smaller number. That will still get you to your answer. These are both even numbers, okay? And so remember, if we have even numbers on both the numerator and the denominator, we can always divide by 2. Okay, so let's do that real quick. If we do 8 divided by 2, okay, and 20 divided by 2, we would get 4 over here and 10 over here. Okay, so 4 over 10, we can still simplify that further. Okay, so we didn't find the highest number that would go into both, and that's okay, so because we can just keep dividing our answers until we get to the simplest form. So what could we divide 4 and 10 by? We can divide both of those by 2 again. So if we do that, we would come up with 2 over 5, or 2/5, and that would be our answer. That would be the simplest form. Okay, let's look at another one, 28 over 42. Okay, so 28 over 42, I know those are both even numbers. I can divide them both by 2. Okay, so if I did that, 28 divided by 2 would give me 14. 42 divided by 2 would give me 21. That's still not simplified. We can still simplify that down a little bit further. So we can just try different numbers, okay? Usually you're gonna stick with the prime numbers, 2, 3, 5, 7, and so on. Okay, so let's try some of those. We divide these by 2. Okay, so divide both of these by 2. That would give us 7 over 10.5. So that would not work. So let's try something else. Let's try 3. Okay, so if we divide both these by 3. Okay, so if we divide both those by 3, we would get 4.7 over 7. So that would also not work. Okay, so we can't use that. Let's try 5. So if we divide both by 5, okay, what are you going to get there? We would get 2.8 over 4.2. So 21 divided by 5 would give us 4.2. So that would also not work because that is not going into those numbers exactly. Let's try 7. Divide them both by 7. And we would get 14 divided by 7 gives us 2. 21 divided by 7 gives us 3. So that would actually work, and that would give us our simplest form for that fraction. So 2/3. All right, let's look at another one. And you can feel free to pause these and try them yourself. So the biggest number between 24 and 36, we know they're both even numbers, so I could divide them by 2. But let's try to think of a bigger number that we can go in there so we have less work to do mathematically. Okay, so if we think about it long enough, we probably come up with 12. Okay, so if we can divide both these by 12. 24 divided by 12 would give us 2, because 12 can go into 24 2 times. 12 can go into 36 3 times. So that would give us 2/3. And that would be in the simplest form. 19 over 22. So again, pause the video, see if you can figure this one out. If you paused it and you came back to me, you'd probably figure out that none of these numbers really work. Okay, so 19 is not an even number. 22 is an even number. So 2 would not work on these. So we could try divide by 2. If we try to divide by 3, that would not work. Divide by 5, that would also not work. 7 would not work, 9, and so on. Okay, so if we tried all these numbers, they're not gonna go into them evenly, and that is because 19 over 22 is already in its simplest form. Okay, so sometimes you'll have kind of bigger numbers, and it may not seem like it's simplified, but it is, because you can't find a number that can divide into both those the same. That is simplifying fractions.